Okay, there we go. Welcome everyone to another phenomenal Thursday for the Entrepreneur Speaker Series. And today I'm so excited because we're bringing in another phenomenal guest all the way from California today, Jacob Roig. And I'm going to give Jacob a warm welcome, of course. So let me tell you a little bit about Jacob, guys, because for those of you who don't know, but Jacob is a phenomenal entrepreneur and he has a very interesting journey. And there's going to be a lot of surprises today in this particular interview. But let me just give you a little bit of a background in what Jacob does. Because Jacob had a corporate career. He didn't start out as an entrepreneur, but he actually had a corporate career, and he then transitioned into leadership coaching, and he's working on a mindset level, training entrepreneurs and teaching them simple and duplicatable processes to double your income and to create more freedom in your life. And that's personally a topic that I'm really interested and passionate about, because isn't that what entrepreneurship is about, guys? Freedom, right? Time freedom, location freedom, and financial freedom. But it is how Jacob does that. And I'm not going to spill the beans here. I'm going to allow Jacob to explain us what he does. But I consider Jacob is the other version of Tony Robbins. He does this really crazy things that allow people to realize that the power is within. So with no further ado, guys, Jacob, it's such a pleasure of having you on the show here today. Welcome, and how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. Thank you, Rob, for having me on. And I'm excited to share what I have inside, because I know that there's a few people out there that have these questions that we're going to help them with today. I'm sure of that.
Absolutely, yes. So our audiences, they're looking for these breakthroughs, right? Some of them have been working really hard on their businesses, or some are actually in the process of building a business. But what I'm curious about right now, David, Jacob, what I want to start with is you weren't always an entrepreneur, right? You started a corporate career in sales. Now, can you take us back and what led you to pursue that path back then?
Yeah, great question. I got into this corporate position. I was in business to business sales, and it was a very high level job. And I felt like this is it. I've made it. And then I realized that the corporate hierarchy and what you had to do sometimes just wasn't tapping into my authenticity. How I didn't feel I had to conform. I just felt like I was here to really help my clients, and it wasn't always the case. So it just kept rubbing me. And eventually on Sunday nights, I would look at the clock and it would be 7 p.m. and I would just get like let down, because I knew in 12 hours I had to go back and do this again. And I put up with that for a few years. And then finally at one point, it was too much. And I made the decision. And it was one of the scarier decisions I had made, because financially I could do this job almost blindfolded. I made myself really good at it. It's the only reason they kept me, by the way, because I wasn't the corporate poster kid.
Yeah.
But I just made the decision. And I had a little bit of support from my wife, which was really good. And I don't mean just a little, but I had her supporting me. Everybody else thought I was crazy. But I just had this, I got an idea. I made a decision that I was going to do it. I had a conversation just with her about it. I wasn't talking with a lot of other people, because I knew in my own growth, because I had been doing my own self-growth for about 10 or 15 years, that the more people I shared my idea with who weren't at that level of understanding would weigh me down with their kindness, but detriment, which is, be careful about this, oh, that's good, but watch out. And then we start taking advice from the wrong people.
Yes.
And so I just kept it with my wife. And then I made this decision in 1999.
Wow.
And so it's been 21 years that I've been at it. And it's not all, a rosy, rose petal pathway, but I don't regret anything that's happened. And I've had some severe things show up for sure.
Absolutely, and we're going to talk about some of these things in a little while. But Jacob, so you were saying that you were already in the process of self-development, working on yourself while you were pursuing a corporate career.
Yes.
And why do you think, like, first of all, what inspired you to actually work on yourself, right? To develop yourself, and why not just focus on the corporate job, right? Why not just focus on, let's say, the job at hand?
Yeah, well, it being in sales, there's two sides of a fence to sales. You know, one is, especially when you go out, you know, it's not in-house. You're alone, so you are in part entrepreneur. You're under the structure of a business, but you have to self-manage. And I realized I wasn't a good self-manager, so that was one of my trainings. They gave us this little training, and it was enough to inspire me that there was more. So I started looking at what was I doing to create my environment? What was I doing to create my mindset or my thinking that was detrimental to me? And I realized it was the majority of everything. So I couldn't even blame it on anybody else, although I wanted to. And so I just started working on little bits and pieces, and I started going to seminars. I was reading books. I invited myself to workshops and started investing in myself a little bit more. And each time I did, something shifted, something changed, and it was always beneficial. It wasn't easy sometimes to admit your flaws or things, but every single step that I took, that I committed to and I followed through on, you know, there were a lot of things that I did that I would stick my toe in and not really commit, but say that I did. Yeah. But the things that I followed through and finished, every single one was a benefit to my career. It was a benefit to my own personal, like, belief and confidence in myself, but also the way I showed up at home and to everybody else. So I got hungry and thirsty for more. And so I kept doing it.
Beautiful. So good. Hey, and Jacob, and I think we're all curious, who were some of the heroes back then, or maybe they still are your heroes today, but who is it that you followed back in the days, or what were some of the seminars that you typically attended?
Yeah, one of the first ones I went to was a gentleman by the name of Tom Hopkins, who taught sales.
Okay.
And one of the first things I learned was when somebody asks you how you're doing, you say unbelievable, because it's either unbelievably good or unbelievably bad, but it eliminates you from having the negative conversation if it isn't good. So they would say, how are you doing? I go, unbelievable. And they would always go, oh, that's good. And then I wouldn't have to have the bad conversation. But he was one. Bob Proctor, who I still follow and read. He's been around for a lot of years. Wayne Dyer was another person that I got introduced to down the road a bit. But you spoke of Tony Robbins as well. And, I haven't followed him religiously, but the pieces that I've gotten from him have been very powerful as well. And when we talk in a little bit, the person that trained him, I was in the last training class with that master as well. So it's been pretty a little bit of intricate tie there, which is nice.
And I personally believe that I have also been on the self-development journey for a very long time. And I think that especially in our community, Jacob, it's probably at the heart of everything we do, right? Self-development, I mean, business or even your career, or like you mentioned, the family situation at home is really a reflection of what is going on the inside. Yeah. So if you consider, if you are currently pursuing a career, right, and you're not happy with the result, then the question is that because of the job? Is that because of the environment? Or maybe that's because of your own thinking, right? So I believe that personal development is, it's a must, right? Because you're constantly evolving, and like you mentioned, upgrading your thinking to achieve different results. So I'm very glad that you mentioned that, because sometimes there's still people, when I get some students, I get this all the time, right? Like, oh, do I need to read these books? Do I need to listen to these audios? I don't have time for this. But in my opinion, it's no longer a question whether you should. It's a must if you want to get different results. What is your opinion about that?
Absolutely. Those that say, I don't have time for this, you don't have time not to do that,
Yeah.
because it's us. We can blame anything outside that we choose. There are people that have had the worst environments ever and are the happiest, most inspiring people that you'll meet. What makes the difference between that person and somebody that's in the lowest possible negative, angry, whatever spot that's possible? It's them.
Yeah.
It's not that outside influence. So we first have to create our own environment inside and then change the environment outside. It's
Beautiful.
absolutely critical for us to, just like you nourish your body, hopefully, you have to nourish your mind and your spirit. And it's a daily practice. How does somebody that's really faithful in religion stay faithful? They practice it every single day.
Yeah.
We have to do this as well. It parallels, our self-growth does parallel staying in strong faith. And staying in strong faith means you have to take action. You have to do the work. You have to surround yourself with the right people. And it doesn't end until we end.
Yes, beautiful. Well said. Well said. And Jacob, I know it has been quite a journey, but still, I would like to see if I can take you back to memory lane just a little bit. But what are some of the things that, as you were going through those seminars and as you were putting in the work, and you had different, let's say, mentors, right, that influenced you in a different way, shape, or form? What were some of the things that really caused a breakthrough for you? Like, you really had this, where I think that we all experience these little shifts in our thinking and consciousness, but sometimes there are some really big ones that can really alter the course of your direction. Do you remember, and are you willing to share some of those breakthroughs that you experienced?
Yeah, well, one that comes up just as you were speaking was, one of the first things was to be aware of what you're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
We're taught to be reactionary. Do as I say, not as I do. Do as I say, like conform, conform, conform. And then when we get to be an adult, we spend a lot more time peeling off all of those layers. And so the first thing is be aware of what I was thinking, and then realizing the impact of what I was thinking. And when I started doing that, and I realized that I could shift, I could change a situation. I could change my perspective and the way that I responded to that situation. And the more I started controlling my thoughts and my responses, the easier things got. The less angry I was, the less negative things impacted me. And it just inspired me and empowered me, because I could go into an environment with a potential customer, and if they were having a bad day, I had the ability to be able to change that just with my thinking first, and then expressing it through my words. And I
Yeah.
realized that I just created these phenomenal relationships by choice. I started choosing what I was thinking, choosing what I was doing, instead of just being a reactionary person.
Wow, that is great. That is really great. And real quick, Jacob, can we change what we're thinking in an instance? Let's say we wake up today, but we're not feeling at our best, right? We may have some of these thoughts that give you some negative thinking, or some negative thoughts are entering your mind, and therefore it changes your emotional state. Do we have the ability to change that at that moment?
Yes, I'll give you an action step right now.
Okay.
So some of the negative things, especially if you're thinking about starting a business, or you're in a business and it's kind of gotten stagnant, and that there's things that you can do. When we're going to take a risk of any type, a new step, there's always the what if. Well,
What
what
if?
if this
Yes.
doesn't work? What if that? So just a quick change. Stick with that. It's okay to have it, but change it. So if I'm saying, well, what if it doesn't work? Or what if I come to this program today and I don't look right? Like talking with Rob, what if I make a mistake?
Yeah.
Changing it instantly to the other side. What if I show up perfectly? And what if I don't make a mistake? And then the brain starts going, oh, I didn't think of that. I was just thinking what would be wrong. So we can change instantly, even if you're in the what if state. What's the opposite of that? And just ask that to yourself if nobody's around, because they'll think you're starting to be crazy, out loud to yourself. And if you're thinking this and you're feeling something, that means you're attaching to the thought.
Yes. Yes.
So what you do is just change it really quickly. It's a real quick change, but what if I don't? Well, what if I do? Oh, and then understanding that. And sometimes what it does is it's just enough to bring us back to center so that we take that next step.
Beautiful.
But that's a quick thing.
And so then this is one of the things that I hear a lot, Jacob, and maybe you can help us reformulate a better question or an opposite response. What if this doesn't work? What would you say?
What if it does? Right? Like that, just that simple. But here's another thing to think about. You're in your deathbed. What would you regret more? That you went for it and it didn't work? Or that you didn't do it and you wonder what would have happened? What could have been?
Yeah. Yeah.
That would, to me, would be so much more painful than making a mistake. Because any mistake, every entrepreneur that has success, they say their mistakes, their failures have been their biggest lessons, their biggest ahas. Every mistake, every failure plants a seed of opportunity if we seize it.
Yes.
It also ends something that's not working. Failure can be this most beautiful thing that happens because it puts an end to something that we're not stepping up to.
Yes.
We're not doing. My own failures, when I look back at them, they were my doing. They weren't the outside things that I was saying that they were. They were me. But it put an end to it, and it allowed me to make this next decision to take advantage of this opportunity. But I had to take advantage of it. So, that's what I would just say. Instead of what if it doesn't work, can you really afford to not do this? Because the idea came to you. If you didn't have the capability of doing it, you wouldn't think it. When's the last time you thought about scaling an ice mountain? Probably never.
Right.
Because it's not even in our capacity. But what you're thinking now as your business is in your capacity.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. And I see behind you, you have the quote, if you believe in yourself, anything is possible. And I love that because that's what I believe too. However, what would you say to people that are, let's say they are in the process right now to make some maybe risky decisions because they have been in a comfort zone, they have been operating maybe within a safe environment, and they are now looking to do something that takes them out of that out of the comfort zone. But it's hard and challenging for those people to believe, right? You just said, just rephrase the question, but we both know that is easier said than done, right? Because you're dealing with emotions. And emotions it's what is driving you to take the action or you don't. So how would you say that if you're still in doubt whether you should take that next step, how could you still believe in yourself, Jacob, and empower yourself to get excited about it? Because I personally found that if you can get excited about it, it will generate those emotions, and therefore you're more excited to take action. So if you're still in doubt, how can you empower yourself to believe in you, that you can do anything?
Well, a thought leads to a feeling. So if we're thinking something long enough, we start feeling it. A feeling leads to hopefully an action. And that's the threshold we have to cross into is taking some actions. But we also have to, I talked about environment. Environment is mental, spiritual, physical. And we have to surround ourselves in an environment of nurturing and growth. We can't be in an environment that's detrimental or limited.
Yeah.
And so changing our mindset from limited or scarcity thinking, like, do I really have the ability or not? It's like, I don't know unless I do it. So I'm going to do it, and that's some of the things that I teach people how to do it really quickly. But you have to be willing to take the action. You have to surround yourself with people that empower you, inspire you, uplift you, and help hold you accountable. So that's why coaching, that's why trainings, that's why Rob's in business, that's why I'm here, because people realize how much more impacting, and we can't do this alone.
Yeah.
You cannot do your business alone. There are people that have to create a website. They have to build the cars. They have to build the cell phones. They have to do all these things. We're not doing this alone, even though we may feel that way.
Yeah.
So you start by getting clear what it is you're doing, who you're doing it with, the problem that you solve. You have to answer that question. There's one main problem. If you can answer that question, and then you just create a really simple plan. What's the next step you have to take? And if you just take one priority step a day that gets you closer to getting new business and you take the weekends off, you have 180 to 220 priority actions you can take in a year. Do you think that you would get results if you did that? Keep it simple. Let it be simple and easy.
Yeah, and it sounds to me focus, right? Focus on the right action steps. And I guess that's like, if you're currently not clear in what is the process, that's where the coaching and guidance comes in, right? From somebody that has been there, done that, that is ahead or having the results that you currently are looking for. Just learn from somebody else, right? And avoid all the mistakes and accelerate that journey. So that leads me into, Jacob, I know that you have a phenomenal program at the moment, and you do things very unconventional, right? And this is exciting, guys, because this is not just your average coaching or mentoring. This is something to challenge you to go beyond yourself, to go beyond even what you currently believe is possible. So Jacob, before we reveal how you do it and what are some of those steps and processes in your programs, can you maybe take us back on how this came about? Like what was the reason for you to implement these things, and why do you feel that was necessary?
Well, as I was saying, there was a tie that I have with several people. T. Harv Eker is another person who I learned from and did a lot of things with. And I was at one of his events in 2000, and it was called Warrior Camp. And he doesn't do it anymore, but it was 5 days of massive challenges, all different series. And it culminated in this event at night. And it was one of the scariest things I had ever done up to that point, which was walking on hot coals, walking on fire. And I remember him walking back and forth with this newspaper hanging down, and he was talking to us in this loud, commanding voice, and and all of a sudden, out of the blue, this paper is about this far from the coals. And as he's walking, and he's talking, and he keeps walking back and forth, all of a sudden this paper goes poof. It just like exploded in flames, right? And then it's like, oh, what am I getting myself into here?
Yeah.
So as I'm in line, I'm about the 20th person in line, or maybe 25th or so, but I start seeing people go through. And it starts easing me a little bit, but my mind's saying, oh, I'm going to be burned up to the knees. Yeah. My legs and feet are going to be gone. I'm going to fall in. I'm going to be blistered. I'm going to be maimed, and I may die. And all these thoughts are like morbid thoughts are going through my mind, but I keep seeing people doing it. And for some reason, I'm still in line. So I'm committed. I'm going, and I'm standing there, and you have to get yourself centered and ready. And I go, and I'm ready, and all of a sudden there's a hand on my chest, and he goes, "Hold it!" It's Harv Eker, right? Yeah. Fresh coals, he yells at the top of his lung, and these people bring these wheelbarrows of hot coals, and they pour them back on the other coals, and I'm like, "Oh my God!" Like it's even worse.
That just intensifies your anxiety,
right? But then I realized they were already hot. They're just putting hot on hot, so it was the same hot. It took me a couple minutes to get myself centered, but I did it, and it was one of the most empowering things I had ever done. First, it was my ego. Oh my God, I walked on hot coals. It's fantastic.
Yes, your bragging rights.
But when I got back to my business, I had just been in my business for about 8 months, and my first business was meteoric. In 10 months of business, we did 1.2 million in sales.
Wow.
And so I left the business at month 8 to go to this week-long seminar. And when I got back, I'm just up in the air. And I hadn't shared with everybody that I'd walked on hot coals and everything, because that was one of the things that you kept to yourself. That was part of the lesson.
Yeah.
And my secretary walks in and she busts through the door and she goes, "We got a big problem." And I thought, I just walked 20 feet on hot coals last weekend. This is nothing.
Right,
So
right.
it taught me a lesson on how to handle certain types of problems. And I said, I have to teach people how to do this. This changed my life. How I handle problems, how I face adversity. And so yeah, the rest of it goes, I got myself certified and we're still at it.
Yes, wow, what an incredible story, Jacob. And I just like I felt, first of all, when you were telling the story, I felt the anxiety boiling up in myself, right? I was getting into your energy sphere. So I could just imagine standing in front and it's almost your turn and there's TR Ecker commanding to add more coals to the fire, right? Your brain goes in overload, like fight or flight response. You want to get out of here, but in the same time you're committed to do it. So you're kind of like pulled in both directions. But would you say that this changed your perspective, right? Because you mentioned the office situation came in when the secretary had a big problem, and in your mind you were thinking, if I just have gone through that, like what could be the problem here? If I can handle this, then what you got is probably not so big. So would you say it changed your perspective?
Oh, totally. And it's still to this day, I've done it many more times since then. But it totally changes your perspective if you use it, just like anything else that you apply. When you walk a fire, you have to address the fire. You do these things to get yourself ready, and you do it in a group format, and there's techniques to do it. And that's just to raise what it's basically doing. It's not mind over matter, by the way. Everybody thinks that, but it's not. It's raising your energy level to the level of the fire. And that's what a facilitator will do. When your energy level is raised to the level of the problem, you will address the problem at the same energy level. At the end of every problem, what is there? There's elation, there's gratitude, there's accomplishment. Just like at the end of a fire walk, everybody goes, "Yes, I did it." It's amazing.
Yes.
So I realized the similarities to that. And so what happens is problems they show up. That's part of life. If life was just smooth and easy, everybody would be wealthy and we wouldn't even think anything of it. We'd all be, 300 pounds laying on the beach doing nothing. So, or whatever it would be. But because of problems and adversity, that builds our character. Every time we go through something and we go through it, we get stronger.
Yeah.
And so that's what I realized for me. So yeah, it totally changed my perspective on how I looked at problems and to be able to look beyond the problem. Because see, when I can see the benefit beyond the problem, it's much easier to go through the problem.
Yeah.
If I'm just focused on the problem, oh, I got this big problem. It's this problem. And what do we talk? That's all we do. And what we talk about creates our little mini environment, but it's also what we focus on. And so we attract more of it.
Beautiful. And Jacob, I know firsthand that walking on fire or walking on coals is not the only thing that you apply in your coaching practice. Would you be able to explain us a little bit of the techniques that you apply and some of the crazy things that you do in your in-person events?
Yeah. So, obviously with COVID, we're not doing it, but I still teach the techniques, even with my clients that are not able to come to the events. But fire walking is one. And fire walking is like how you handle a big problem. Because a fire walk is you get set, you get determined, and you don't run, but you don't you don't stop to take a selfie either. You walk with determination. And so you get committed and you walk. You don't run, but it's till the end. You see it through until the end. You don't stop.
Yeah.
I also teach people how to walk on broken glass, which for me was even scarier than walking on hot coals, because I just envisioned slicing my tendons and toes off and, not being able to ever walk again. And all those visions came to me too, you guys. And that teaches you how to be present with every single step, every part of your step. You're present with it. It's very slow and methodical. And some problems take that. I teach people how to break boards without ever having any martial arts, breaking bricks. I throw some fire on it sometimes to create this visual obstacle. Oh, not only am I breaking this board, but now there's fire on it.
Yeah, wow. So you're mixing.
Yeah,
you're
it just
mixing.
messes with people. Yeah. And so, but it's another obstacle. And sometimes we get two problems at the same time. How do you handle it? So I also teach people how to break arrows with their throat. And what that does is that, for me, it was one of the most profound things I've did, because it helped me use my voice. Those areas that I held back in talking or speaking up or speaking out, that activity helps with that tremendously.
Wow.
It's the softest part of your throat right here.
Yeah.
And if you just put your finger here, you can feel it choked right away.
Yeah.
So imagine pushing all your weight against an arrow, and it's a real arrow, and doing that. And I promise you, there's not enough insurance that if people were getting hurt, that they would insure me at my events. They do insure me. So if it's done correctly, it's all safe. But we also do taking 1/2-inch rebar, which they use for concrete, and having two people join together and just have it here in your throat and bend it perfectly in half.
Wow.
I've had people 80 years old that were able to break bricks, break boards, bend rebar together. I've had a 12-year-old breaking bricks and breaking boards and walking on coals. It doesn't matter of age or strength. What matters is, are you up here?
Yeah.
And it's a great example. All of those things that I shared with you, all those fears that I went through, what created those? It was my thinking. Were they real? Not at all. When I went through it, did I get hurt? I became a facilitator. If I got hurt, do you think I'd do it?
Yes.
So realize the power of our thought, and also the power of our thought, like in holding us back too, because it creates all of these things. And if they're not real, our responsibility, if you're really serious about moving yourself forward, is facing our adversity and facing our problems.
Yeah.
And then realizing that we can go through anything that we've been confronted with, we can go through.
Amazing, amazing. And that lead me to the subject of the conscious and the subconscious mind, right? Because when you talk about thinking, we have two levels. We have the conscious and the subconscious. And you may not understand it completely, but everybody, I think, have heard about the concept of the conscious and the subconscious mind. Now, do you believe that some of the fears that we hold in our life, and even towards entrepreneurship, I believe myself personally that entrepreneurship is the highest form of life, because it pushes you to really utilize all the mental capacity and being creatively, being determined, being disciplined. Right. But so many people, they are still thinking of entrepreneurship, yet not taking that decision. So do you think that some of these fears that we carry along, do you think it comes from subconscious programming?
Oh, absolutely. That's part of it for sure. And there's a part of our brain called the reticular activation system, your RAS.
Yeah.
And that's your past experiences. So as a child, if you're playing, let's say a spider comes up and you play with it and you go, oh, it tickles when it walks on me. And you have no fear whatsoever. And then your parent comes around the corner and goes, oh my God, get that spider off you. And all of a sudden you're like, what's going on? And they kick it off and they step on it. And what's that tell you? Spiders are terrible. And so what do we carry with us? There's people that are petrified of bugs or spiders, or my daughter is petrified of bees. She's 34 years old now. And she's never been stung. Wow. She's never been stung.
Wow.
Ever. And she's petrified of bees. So it's what creates that? It's a recess back here. Somewhere along the line, she got this programming and she's not willing to change it. So what we have to do is once we identify, like, these fears that you're showing up are probably something that's related to something you heard, something you did, something you saw or experienced. And then we relate it to, it's bad, it's this. But if you look at how many people are successful, it's probably at least the same amount as that feel like they're unsuccessful. And the only reason that we become unsuccessful is we either don't do enough, we're not clear and specific enough, so we're chasing everything, or we quit.
Yeah.
So if you have it in you that you desire to do this and you have these feelings in the back, they're normal, number one, but they're also conquerable.
Yeah.
And it's not difficult to do it. It just takes a lot of clarity, a little bit of specifics, and persistent action. And persistent action is just catching my thought, being aware. So be aware of what you're thinking. And if it's negative, change that thought. And if you can't change it, think of something else. As a exercise, I'll tell people, like, especially when we're going to an event like the glass walk or something, and I'll say, all right, who's got some fear going on? Who thinks they might be able to be cut? And they're raising their hands. And I say, okay, close your eyes for a second, take a deep breath. So some of you out there, close your eyes, take a deep breath. Imagine you have a freshly cut lemon in your hand right now. It's this beautiful lemon you just picked off a tree and you just sliced it. So even in your hand far away, you can start smelling it now. And then pull it up to your nose and just squeeze it just a little bit and smell that. And now put it in your mouth and take a little bit of sip of that juice. And what are you experiencing in this moment? Number one, I totally changed your thinking. Number two, see how powerful your thoughts are. For those of you that had watering mouths, you didn't have a lemon in your hand. You just thought that you did. This is how easy you can change your thinking.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, I totally get the sensation because I happen to love lemons. So I was going with the visual there. That was amazing, Jacob. So besides some, and I understand the premise, right, of what you're trying to do with like the arrow breaking, the brick breaking, the firewalk, the glass walk. I understand the premise. What are some of the other techniques? Because we talked a little bit about the subconscious mind and becoming aware of what you're thinking. Now, subconscious, sometimes you are carrying this with you, but you are not aware that you're thinking it. And one of the examples that I get all the time is money, right? I'm sure that you have had this before. And T.R. Becker, right? He teaches money, like, money is the root of all evil. If this is what you identify, how can you change that? Right. And so money, the money aspect, especially with new entrepreneurs, right? I'm not making enough money to sustain the business, to support my lifestyle. I may have to go and quit and get a job, right? To get some stability, right? I think, especially in the early stages, the financial aspect is very challenging for a lot of new time entrepreneurs. Now, what would you recommend, Jacob, if, let's say, if the money aspect is challenging right now, what could you do, or what could you recommend to become aware that you may have a problem in the way that you think about money, and second, maybe the arrow breaking or the brick breaking is not readily available to you, right? To go and perform that exercise and to break that subconscious belief. But what other techniques could you recommend that is very easy for people that they can do today, if needed, to become aware of those limiting beliefs?
Yeah. So you can use a piece of paper, and you can start by write a story to money as if it's a person. And you'll be surprised at what you might write. I remember my story to money was, you play hard to get. Sometimes you show up and then you leave without telling me you're leaving. Or sometimes you say you're coming my way and then you don't even call. And, like, I'm writing to it like a person. And I'm reading this and I go, wow, no wonder I have these ups and downs with money. So I would write a little bit of a story to money as if it were a person. Like, what's your relationship with money?
And would you just allow it to flow, like
Yeah.
whatever comes to your mind, you write it down?
Yeah, just free flow. Don't think it through, because when you're thinking, you're in your head. And trust me, being up here is not the right place to be all the time. When we need it, it's there. But most of the time, take 14 inches down and stay in your heart. What you have to understand is money in and of itself is just paper and metal. It's really kind of worthless. But what does it allow you to do? See, I love money because it enhances my lifestyle. I love money because it enhances my joy. It allows me to share. It allows me to do things for people that I love. It allows me to give to charity. It allows me to expand my happiness. It doesn't create happiness whatsoever, but it expands my happiness because when I can take my family on a trip, back when we could,
Yeah,
and you see the joy in their face and our ability to be together as a family. Without money, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So look at money from a different perspective. What's it allowing you to do? And it's not about the stuff. I've lost all my stuff. I've got all my stuff back, the different stuff. It's just stuff. But what does it do to allow our expression? What's it do to spread joy or share joy? When I can do something really nice for somebody that's unexpected and I don't expect anything back, which is called unconditional giving, it's the best form of using money that I can think of. So look at it from a different perspective, because I guarantee the people that are saying, oh, money is this, money is that, they don't have enough. Because you want to change somebody's business perspective that's in business, let them get a new sale. All of a sudden, the business is great today, but yesterday it was terrible because they didn't have enough. Yeah. And so it's not about the money itself. So people that focus just on the money are usually the ones that don't have sustained success. They have burst of it, but not sustained. Go ahead.
No, another thought came up, Jacob, and this is something that I also get questions from all the time. So if we're able to change the story about money, and people or entrepreneurs are not per se doing things differently, right? They don't implement new strategies or tools or even a sales team in place, but they just keep on doing what they're doing. However, they change the story about money. Would you say there is a possibility that alone can change how much money you're going to be attracting when you change your story or the beliefs about money?
Yeah, I think that it has the power and ability to do that. But I think to achieve all of it, the level that we usually desire, we do have to implement some things. But just changing your perspective and your belief on money. See, if I have this belief, whether I'm sharing it or not, energetically, it's permeating your space as well when we're connecting. So if I have this limited scarcity belief about money and there's not enough in this, when I'm looking to sell somebody, they're going to pick up that pheromone energy, whatever we want to call it.
Yes.
And they're more than likely, we're going to attract those people in scarcity, because like minds attract like attracts like. We're magnets.
Yeah.
So if I'm a magnet and I've proven that it's true, I had to change my thinking, because I don't choose to attract that. I choose to attract this. So get clear in where you're at now, which is be aware of what it is that you're thinking. Journal down, write down what your thoughts are. And when you catch yourself with a negative thought about money, it's not about just changing it and then thinking that's it and then it's going to go away. Change the thought, change the words, change the voice, but then take one action. What's one action you can take today that gets you one step closer to money? What is one area that you're holding back? Is it making a phone call? Is it posting on social media? Is it doing, and then take that action, be willing to put yourself out there. As an entrepreneur, there comes a point where we can't afford to do it on our own anymore, because we're the reason we're limited. We're holding ourselves back. When Corona hit, the worst time in the world to start spending a bunch of money. I'm spending more than I have in the last 10 years on growing my business, getting outside help, because I knew that there was a new dynamic happening. I knew that there were changes that had to be, and I knew that there would also be another wave created, and I chose to be on the top of the wave, not down here waiting.
Yeah.
So I got into action from March 11th was the first day it kind of started hitting.
Mm-hmm.
And by March 17th, every single client that I was working with, instead of coaching them once a week or once every other week, I was coaching them 3 to 5 times a week. We got into massive action. We thought outside the box. We changed things. And every single person that I work with has either maintained their pre-corona levels or has exceeded their previous levels.
Beautiful.
Some doubling. So it's not our environment. We get to create it. That's outside, right? That's happening, but it doesn't have to happen to me as well.
Beautiful.
So we can change our results.
And I think that that's an incredible lesson here today, guys, because you can absolutely control the circumstances, right? As Jacob clearly laid it out, right? We faced a pandemic, and on top of that, an economic crisis in America. And for some people, it's the worst year in their life, but for other people, it's the best. So you have the two opposites. But the question is really, which side of the coin do you choose? And I emphasize on choosing to be, because if you become aware of your own thinking, then either you do more of that if it's positive, or if you currently recognize that you have limiting beliefs, you can then identify, change the story, and start taking different actions towards better results. So I think that that's very, very powerful, Jacob. And thank you for sharing, because I think that a lot of people can use some encouragement right now that maybe the circumstances are not ideal, right? But just with a little bit of work and becoming aware of your own thinking, you can actually flip the script and take massive action in towards the right direction to create better results.
Absolutely, you can. And remember, the key though is it's not just one effort.
Yeah.
You know, the journey, I think it's an Asian proverb, but the journey of 1,000 steps. We can only take one step at a time, but if we don't take one step, we misstep. And so I analogize momentum, which is what we have to have, as a big round rock in your backyard. And it takes you putting your back into it and with your legs at every single ounce of strength to get it just to move. But as soon as it moves, you can push it with 2 hands easily and keep it going.
Yeah.
If you stop, if you take one day off, right? I'm not saying don't take weekends off, but if you don't take that one action, it stops the ball. What do you have to do to start it back up? You got to put your back into it. How many times can you do that before you get so wore out you don't do it anymore?
Yeah.
So it's not about doing one action and then waiting. It's about getting committed. It's about getting a simple plan in place and taking a step, because right or wrong step, it's going to let you know. If you don't take the first step and it's the wrong step, the second or the right step is not going to reveal itself. You're not going to research it out. You're not going to think the right thing. Sometimes we do. Awesome. But even if we don't, find the joy in every single step. See, how amazing is it that you're thinking about a business out there? How amazing is it that some of you have taken steps to take the next step towards the business? Even if it's a mistake and I mess up, it's like, how awesome is it that this problem is here? People think I'm crazy because I get excited about problems. But I'm like, wow, there's a problem.
Bring it on.
The reason is because if I wasn't taking a step forward, I would not experience this problem.
Yeah.
I'm moving forward.
Yes.
Once I get through this problem, it's going to even be easier, and I'll be able to teach some of my clients not to do this. So find the joy in each step, because there is. Each step you take reveals something to you that you're willing and able and capable of taking that next step.
Yeah. And overall, an attitude of gratitude, right? It's just a very beautiful state that you can choose to live in every single day.
Yeah. Well, like you said too, Rob, that, we attract what we think about. So if that's true, we get to choose, because we're either choosing consciously or unconsciously our thinking. So if I get to choose it, and what I think about the most is what shows up, I'm going to think good. Because if I got the choice, why not?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Jacob, and I'm very, very excited because as always, right, when we bring in phenomenal guests to the community, we always ask, because the reason why we do these interviews is if there's just one thing from today that people can take away, that they resonate with, that they could implement, it could cause a massive shift in their current results, right? So I always ask if there's something that we could do for the community. And when we were talking backstage, right, you mentioned that you were generous enough and willing to spend some of your time with the community here if they want to take advantage of that, to talk to the community and to help them create a structure, right? Because you're teaching systems and processes and being able to cause breakthroughs. Now, if people want to take advantage of that today, Jacob, and want to get in touch with you, what are some of the things that you would be talking, what you would be talking with about it with them on these calls?
Yeah. So, one of the things that we had talked about, Rob, is that, I'd offer a coaching session to anybody that's open to it. I think I have to limit it to 10. But in that 45-minute session, I promise you will get clear. You'll have clarity. You'll have an action step or two to take. I don't give you more, because I could give you 20 things to do, but you won't do 20 things. You'll do one or two.
Yes.
That will help you take that next step. And I promise you that your mindset will be shifted. It doesn't take a lot to change. I do 1 to 3 day events. Mm-hmm. And in 1 to 3 days, people realize how they can address problems and go through them easily. Change doesn't take a long time. It takes a long time to change this. Yes. And when it's done in the right place, it can happen really fast. Everybody that's thinking of a business has the ability to succeed in the business if you commit to doing it, and you get this commitment as a knowing inside that no matter what, I'm doing this business, no matter how long it takes, no matter what it takes. When I was doing coaching, there were times I had to go back to work 3 times. It was painful, but I knew it was temporary. I was willing. I remember not saying this more than one time because I didn't want to attract it. But if I had to sleep in my car, that's what I was willing to do to be a coach, because I felt the calling and I knew that this was something that I had to do. You have to have that type of commitment and conviction to make it work, because it's, as you said, Rob, it's one of the biggest adventures and journeys you can go on is being an entrepreneur, about learning about yourself, how you handle problems. You're forced to make decisions, sometimes way more than you'd prefer to. Yeah. We learn a lot about ourselves in the way that we handle things, in the way that we grow, in the way that we expand, or the way we contract. So offering somebody a coaching session who feels like they're stuck, or the what ifs, or what's my next step, whatever it is, or that you realize through this conversation we've had today that you're your biggest obstacle. Congratulations, number one. That's a big lesson. Yeah. But yes, the 45-minute session would definitely be something that I would recommend. If I were in the audience and I know me, I would take me up on this. Yeah. And it's not to sell you anything. I promise you there will be no selling involved during this session. That's up to you, and down the road later. Or you can find me on social media.
Yeah, that was the next question, Jacob. So if people want to take advantage of this, and guys, I highly recommend that you take advantage, because this is very generous, right? Jacob is offering his time to sit down to assess a personal breakthrough session, right? To get to know you, to understand a little bit where you're currently at and where you want to be, and then create some clarity around that. Like, I think that's a phenomenal gift, Jacob. So how can people get in touch if they want to take advantage of this? How do they apply for this?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I could do it through your site or not, but I can send my calendar schedule link.
Yes.
And we can do it through that. And then that way it's seamless. And I'll just get the notice, and then I'll reach out after that and do that. But, even if you don't, take at least one of these things that we shared today and utilize it and keep going forward and get to that place. One of the books that I've read many, many times, and I highly recommend it, is Think and Grow Rich.
Yes.
There's better books, but that's a really good one.
Yeah.
Chapter 3 is on faith. Read that 10 times. Read the chapter on faith 10 times, because that's one of the major, major foundational keys that it takes to grow a business, to sustain a business. You got to have faith.
Beautiful. Yeah. And 100% agree, guys. If you haven't read that book, pick it up. I think for so many successful people, they swear by this book, right? Think and Grow Rich. It contains all the principles. And I highly agree, Jacob, is one of my favorites and my go-to books every time where I want to reinforce certain beliefs or I want to reconfirm myself that where I'm going is the right direction. I turn to this book. So thank you for mentioning that, because that is indeed a phenomenal book. So yes, the team will take note and we'll get in touch with you, Jacob, about the calendar, guys. And this is exciting because this means that you can actually book yourself a spot, right? We're limited to 10, and I hope you understand that, right? It's the time commitment here that Jacob is so generous to set time aside to speak to you. So take advantage. Now, Jacob, if people get curious about your rituals during your coaching sessions, right? The arrows, the whole entourage. Is there any footage, or can we follow you on social media? Can we see some of those stunts in action from some of your past events? Because it certainly got me excited.
Yeah, I post them occasionally on my LinkedIn page, and I use them as messages. But you can also go to my website, which is jacobroig.com. And I have my breakthrough. It's called the Ultimate Breakthrough Experience, is what we do. And there's a page on it that doesn't show a lot. It talks more. I don't really share a lot of the visual because it's not about the ego. And those pictures would be about the ego. It's more about the lesson that you can learn. When you can face something and you know how to address it, and you're able, and you have this experience, your RAS kicks in, your reticular activation system, and you have this experience of going through something. And when I teach, a glass walk is for this type of problem, breaking a board is for this type of problem, breaking a brick is this, fire walking is this, you can reflect on it. I have rugs in my house, and one's my fire walk rug, and I have a really long runner, that's my glass walk, where I methodically walk really slow as I go through a problem. And these are just metaphors now. That's why I say I teach people, even without being at the event, how to use these experiences, because you can imagine if you're walking on glass and Rob, you just stepped on it, and your second step, you feel safe and you're going really slow and nothing sharp or pointy. And all of a sudden glass crunches and goes crunch. And then you go, oh no. Yeah. And then you realize everything's okay. And then you go, okay, now I'll take the next step. But it's very slow and methodical. And then there's certain problems that you have to take slowly. There's other problems that you have to address, and we don't have time to wait. That's a fire walk. Boom, let's go. Yeah. But you have to be prepared and ready. If you're not prepared and ready for a problem, you usually create more problems, or you get so stressed that you mess something else up. So they're all metaphoric.
Yes. And I love that. So guys, we just published Jacob's website here live on the chat. So go and check it out to see some of those events that we talked about and see some of the experiences that Jacob's breakthrough program provides, right? So if you're not ready for that yet, if that is beyond your comfort level right now, then go and take advantage and create some clarity first, right? I think that's a beautiful metaphor to have a starting point. But I wanted to thank you, Jacob, for providing massive value today. As always, we're bringing phenomenal entrepreneurs with a giant heart for changing the world, right? To change people, to help them create breakthroughs, because together we are changing the world around us. So I just wanted to say thank you for coming onto the show today, for sharing so much amazing value. And I hope that we can do this again, maybe hopefully when things allow us to go back to the old ways, where maybe you are able to do these in-person events, and we could potentially be discussing when one of your next live events is going to be, and to see if we can round up some entrepreneurs who are willing and ready to do something like that, to bring us all together, right? That would be really exciting. So hopefully we can maybe talk again and find ways that we can discuss something in person in the near future.
Yes, absolutely. I could be there saying, here we are at the Co's, and Rob is about ready to walk for it.
Guys, I'm willing and committed to do so, because I'm all about breaking my own limiting beliefs. So if that's what it takes to take me to the next level, Jacob, I will be the first one to sign up.
Thank you so much. And thank you too, in the background, Christiana, for setting this up. I'm really grateful that I was here today as well.
Awesome. There you have it, guys. Another phenomenal interview with Jacob Roig. Check out the website. If you had anything nice to say about today, pay it forward. Leave us a review. Let Jacob know what you liked about the interview. Give him some praise for the tremendous contribution today. And as always, I will see you again on the next episode next week, same time, same place. Jacob Roig, thank you so much, and I wish you a phenomenal week.
Thank you so much. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. Bye-bye.